Today I'm going to review 5 books. They are A Mind for Numbers, The Talent Code, The Power of One More, Scarcity, and Buy Back Your Time. Stick around, see what all these amazing books have to offer. So, the first book is called A Mind for Numbers by Barbara Oakley. This book is all about how to learn anything deeply and thoroughly and well. She talks about 4 key principles. They are chunking, focused and diffuse thinking, spaced repetition system, and recall versus recognition. And I'll go over the important differences between all of these. So the first part is chunking. It's where you're focusing really hard on something, say a math problem, I believe that's the example she uses, and then you try to get a little bit, get a hook into your brain about this topic. Say maybe it's a new kick in martial arts where you're trying to get just the basics of, okay, here's the mechanics of how to do it, here's focusing in on it, get that little hook in your brain. Then that leads into the focused and diffuse thinking modes, where after the focus, after you get that little chunk in there, then you want to go do something completely unrelated and let your brain do some diffuse processing, because that's when it will solidify that memory and solidify those skills. A really great way to do this is focusing really hard on something right before you go to bed and then letting your brain dream on it a little bit. Because dreaming is that lovely process where our brain cleans itself out and organizes our thoughts because we like clarity of thinking, so it's really good to get some good sleep in there. The third concept was spaced repetition system. It's where you learn something and then you quiz yourself on it in a few minutes, and then quiz yourself on it again in a few hours, and then a few days, and however long those intervals need to be to get it into your brain. And the best way to do that is not to recognize them, not to put something in front of you and recognize, but it's to recall. Like think, okay, how did I do that kick? Don't watch someone else do that kick and recognize that they're doing the same kick. Remember how you did it, and then recall, bring it up into your own consciousness. That's how it works best, according to her. I have tried this myself with, I do martial arts, and so one of the ways I learned some of the more basic moves and forms in my martial arts was I would focus very hard right before bedtime on one of the forms. I would go through the whole form, focus very hard on every single move, and then I would go to bed. And then the next day, it was easier because my brain had processed it overnight. And that's when we get all of that clarity and all that organization. And I did that repeatedly for a week. And then, amazingly, I had gotten a brand new form only in a week because I was repeating it right before bed. And then the next night it was easier right before bed, right? Not just because it was another repetition through it, but because I was also letting it process in my brain overnight. I highly recommend this book, A Mind for Numbers. It is fantastic. It will help you learn absolutely anything. It is definitely in the veneer of math, but it really isn't about math. It's just about learning. Up next, we have The Talent Code. There are 3 key parts of this one, 3 key takeaways I got from this one. The first is deep practice, the second is immediate feedback, and the third is repetition. There's more to it, but these are the ones I want to talk about today. Deep practice, what he's talking about is building a neural network with, so we've heard that term, neurons that fire together wire together, right? So every time you do physical practice, that neural signal goes from one end to the other. That ready neuron sends a signal down its sheath, and the more times it sends that signal, the thicker the insulation on that neuron becomes. Much like electric wiring in a house, for example. If you don't have an insulated wire, that signal is going to go everywhere. But if your wire is insulated and insulated well, that signal goes very fast. And so getting more practice in means that that the brain is literally processing the moves more quickly. So it is key to get the physical practice in. The next one is immediate feedback. Getting feedback on, did I do that move exactly how I was supposed to do that move, exactly how we talked about doing that move? Did I do it a little bit differently? And if I did do it differently, what was different and how do I change it to get back to what I was supposed to be doing? That's the key. Like, is the instant you do it, you want to know, hey, was that right? Even while you're doing it sometimes, which that always helps if we can correct course while we're doing a move. Finally, repetition is the key. So you want to learn it, you want to repeat it, and then learn to feel it, is what he says in the book. So if you learn, say, a new kick in your martial arts class, or on the soccer field, you learn how to kick that ball just right on the tip of your toe, so then you can get it into the goal or into your target wherever you, if your target is the goal or if it's another teammate, you want to be able to know exactly what angle that ball is kicking at. And then you repeat it over and over again so that you can tell when something goes not quite the way you thought or if it goes exactly the way you planned on. So learn it, repeat it, learn to feel it. One of the things he says at the end is, in theory, practice and theory are the same, but in practice they are not. I highly encourage you to pick up this book and read it. It will change how you learn physical things forever. It's amazing. Up next, we have The Power of One More. I was a little skeptical about this book at first, just because, everyone knows about the one more concept, but he really does talk about it quite powerfully, the mental power of doing more, doing just one more. If we think about...
Talks about a few key things, doing just one more, about persistence, and about breaking it down into manageable, real, actually producible steps. So just one more is like, the very simplest example is if you can do 10 push-ups, or if you can do 1 push-up to start, and then the next day you can do 2 push-ups, that's 1 more. And then the next day 3. And if you can do 1 more, eventually, you can do a lot of push-ups, right? If you can run a few more steps, if you can, do 1 more of whatever, just that mental, getting over the mental hurdle and forcing yourself to do, pushing for just 1 more. The persistence part is making yourself do it repeatedly and not giving up on it. And that leads straight into the breaking it down into real steps. You want to look at, if you have this goal, if you have a goal, like, where is your deadline and how can you break that goal down into steps that are actually realistic and doable and be persistent to get it done. Aim for really high standards, he says. Don't aim for perfection. Perfection really is the enemy of good enough. Something that's 80% done can be good enough, and that's okay. Like, look at your standards and then decide for you what's right and what you're okay with. I highly recommend this book, The Power of Just One More. Next up is scarcity. The 3 concepts I want to talk about in this one are tunnel vision, reduced focus on short-term goals, and systems to increase bandwidth so that we can combat tunnel vision. The first one, tunnel vision itself, this happens when there is a reduction in some resources tight, right? We don't have a lot of time, we don't have enough money for something. Any kind of reduction in a valuable resource will lead to tunnel vision, at least in that area. Say if we're short on time some week because we have to work and then we don't get home till 5 and then we have a busy night of multiple children's activities, so everyone's got to be in a different place at a different time, and it's just playing a lot of Tetris with the calendar. And in those times, it reduces, we are simply looking at how to get to the next thing, execute the next move, and we completely lose sight of what the bigger picture is. If there are systems we could use to just take a breath and figure out how to do things better, like how to schedule things. Maybe there's some batching we can do. Maybe both parents don't need to go to one of the practices. Maybe one parent goes to everything for this kid and one parent goes to everything for that kid. Those bigger picture items, they get lost in the tunnel vision of being super busy because we don't have the bandwidth to even think about how to best batch things. And sometimes it's just hard to do because there's too many activities. When this happens, it also can reduce our focus on our goals, short and long term, because we're not thinking in terms of the bigger picture. We're literally thinking we have to get to the next appointment. And then once we're at that appointment, maybe we don't have any bandwidth left to think about something else right then. Maybe the energy and the bandwidth are in shorter supply than the time. And then we have to then focus to get to the next appointment. So being crunched for time can lead to this kind of reduced focus and tunnel vision and just exhaustion, as we all know. This leads into the systems they talk about for increasing your bandwidth is maybe something you can do once a week, maybe on the weekends, whatever day you don't work, is take a look at, okay, this is the week in advance. Where are ways that we could streamline things ahead of time? Can we, for example, get our dinner ready? Like if you have an activity Monday night, you definitely need to know exactly what you're going to do Monday. You need to have the dinner ready. You need to have things so everything can be streamlined ahead of time so that you can save your energy in the moment, save your bandwidth, such that you come home, you know what you're having for dinner, you know it's right there, and then you can pack up and get your stuff, which may already be packed, and get to your appointment with your kid. And then you can have that bandwidth back because you took the moment, you took that time over the weekend to prepare. That's a lot of what he talks about in this book. Having any resource be tight or scarce affects us in ways that we don't even necessarily consider at the time. And if we look ahead at things and try to actively break out of that tunnel vision and get ahead, be proactive, it can make a huge difference in our lives. I highly recommend this book. Pick up a copy and see for yourself. It's really, really well done, and it's a good read on top of that.
And last up, we have Buy Back Your Time. I was a little skeptical about this book because I thought it's really just about paying people to do things so that you don't have to do them, right? Well, yes and no. It is exactly about that, but in a really positive way. He has an income formula, a buyback loop, and an 80% rule. Those are the ones I want to talk about. The income formula, I think everyone has probably done the calculation of how much is my time worth per hour or per specified unit of time versus some chore or errand that needs to get done, and how much would it cost to pay someone to do that chore or errand for me. Here's an example from my own life. My husband and I do not enjoy mowing the lawn. We do not enjoy yard work at all, and my husband was the one who was in charge of that. I was in charge of other things, separation of duties. Well, he found someone who could take care of the yard work for about half of what he makes in an hour. And so for half of his hourly salary, we then don't have to think about yard work. It is taken care of for us every 2 weeks, and then we get to go do other things with our time and mental energy. It's fantastic. I have someone come clean my house every couple of weeks, and so I don't have that in my bandwidth. I don't have to think about someone that when I need to clean the bathroom, for example, I just know, okay, that's going to get cleaned every 2 weeks. And the only part of that that's in my brain space is that, oh, my cleaning person is coming this day, which means the day before, maybe I want to put some of my stuff away so that my cleaning person can then more easily get to the things to do her job. The buyback loop, it talks about how to delegate, like how to figure out which tasks of yours are high value versus low value. What are the lower value things that someone else could do that aren't worth as much money versus the higher value things that you need to do or that you are going to be much, like exponentially more effective at. And it's the whole how to delegate them, figure out the low value versus the high value, and then get those low value tasks off to other people whose time is not the same as yours. The last part is he has this beautiful rule he says at the end, which I now live my life by: 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. An example from my own life here, this is not sponsored. I have robot vacuums. They do 70 to 80% of the work of keeping the floor clean. Now, I also have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, both boys, and boy, do they love their snacks and chips. So for me, being able to sweep crumbs off the couch at the end of the night and then having the vacuum in the middle of the night and set it on quiet mode, I love that. Having the vacuum come and clean the floor while we're all sleeping. It may not be perfect. It gets 70 to 80% of everything. But 80% done by a vacuum is 100% not done by me, right? It's fantastic, and I love that part. I do not want to spend my time or my mental energy worrying about the floors. I mean, who wants to clean floors? That is not a thing I'm interested in doing. So I highly recommend this book. Not everyone's going to be at the level he is, where he literally has a house administrator who makes sure his car is stocked for him. That sounds amazing. I would love to be at that level, working toward it. But I highly recommend this book. Be sure to pick it up and your life will get better. So again, the books we talked about today were A Mind for Numbers, The Talent Code, The Power of One More, Scarcity, and Buy Back Your Time. I hope you got something out of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you get all future videos and take action on these books if you choose to read them. They're really fantastic. Thank you. And as always, keep being amazing.